I'm doing my presentation on a holistic view of lucid dreaming and how we can use everyday techniques in order to actually have a lucid dream. So my background, I have been lucid dreaming as long as I can remember. I've studied lucid dreaming while studying psychology for my undergrad. I've helped develop programs to improve lucid dreaming, and I currently run a website and community that is geared around lucid dreaming, altered states of consciousness, and those include out-of-body experiences, astral projection, and some work with entheogens as well. I try to take a more scientific approach towards these phenomenon so that people can learn possibly some of the science behind it, as well as some of the personal experiences that people have. So I've been working with lucid dreams for over 20 years, and I currently work with a number of sleep professionals that study sleep and dreams, including Ryan Hurd, who is a professor at John F. K. University, and you can visit his website at dreamstudies.org. He's got some great information about lucid dreams, and we work together on a number of projects that center around lucid dreams. So what is lucid dreaming? Lucid dreaming is being aware that you are dreaming. It's simple as that. That's taken from a quote from Stephen LeBerg and his book, where he talks about lucid dreaming as one of the first books that I've ever read on lucid dreaming, and it's a great source of information. But lucid dreaming to me is the ability to be aware that you are dreaming in a dream. So typically you go to sleep and you wake up inside the dream and you become aware and you notice that you are dreaming. So there's many things to do in lucid dreams. That's basically the best definition that you can have for what a lucid dream is. So why would you want to have a lucid dream? Lucid dreaming allows for a person to explore their own personal psyche, learn more about themselves and their connection to others, and the complexities that make up the human mind. Lucid dreaming is considered the most realistic psychedelic experience anyone could possibly have. Why I say that is because I've experimented quite a bit and have read and researched a number of hallucinogenic type experiences with psychedelics and entheogens, and I can honestly say that from my experience as well as other people's experiences, lucid dreaming is some of the most realistic experiences you can have in altered states. Lucid dreaming has been used by Tibetan monks to travel beyond the physical reality, and there is evidence that Egyptian mystics have used lucid dreaming in their spiritual practices. There are even religious saints that have been documented using lucid dreaming as a means to assist others in their spiritual practices. So I've actually found evidence from a number of Catholic saints that have actually been depicted and discussed having out-of-body experiences and lucid dreams and actually traveling around and trying to assist people. Tibetan monks write about lucid dreaming in Dream Yoga, and that's very well documented, and there's different ways and things that they're trying to do in that way, but overall they're trying to get to the same place, which is the lucid experience. Egyptians mystics have also been discussed having documented ways of traveling outside their body while they're awake. Of course, they could be using different plants and things like that in order to do that, as well as some talking about them using sound through like the pyramids and things like that in order to alter the brain and cause these type of altered states, which typically would be considered natural versus using plant substances. So there's 5 stages typically used when discussing different types of lucid dreams. Stage 1 is a personal play, so seeking pleasure, sexual drives, avoiding trauma and fear. Stage 2, manipulation, changing the dream environment, manipulation of the physics, flying, breathing in water, etc. Dominance, stage 3, controlling the dream character, exploring the purpose of the dream fights back. Stage 4, guidance, listen to the dream guides, ask questions to the dream world, seeking out for knowledge hidden in the dream. Stage 5, awareness, seeking past the images, diving deeper past the dream, seeing oneness with consciousness. Those sound kind of familiar to Ken Wilber's AQAL map and many of the models that he's developed over time as well. And we're going to go through each stage here and discuss the importance of each stage. So stage 1, personal play. When I first started lucid dreaming, I would seek out pleasure in the form of love, friendship, and family. I would see beautiful places and avoid the darker aspects of the experience. So when I first started lucid dreaming, I was very young. When the dream would go negative, darker, I would try to wake myself up. And typically, many people in stage 1 type lucid dreams would seek sexual pleasure, and that's often described as a goal of many lucid dreamers. So stage 2, manipulation. After some time, I started to see that the reality of the dream offered an ultimate or unlimited number of possibilities, which included the ability to fly. I began to see that I was more than just a body in this aspect, but traveling awareness. So in stage 2, many people try to manipulate the dream, change the physics. They try to fly, they try to go underneath the water and explore water without holding their breath. They can breathe in the water. Typically people notice that dream physics do not apply as they do in the real world, and that you can actually change those physics and manipulate the dream world to do whatever you want. Dominance. Stage 3. After learning about the control I had over the physics aspect of the dream, I started to explore the control over the dream characters themselves. This opened a darker aspect of the dream as it started to fight back. So in stage 3 lucid dreaming, for myself, I found that dream characters were actually aspects of myself, and that I could control them to do my will. Obviously, there's a little bit darker things in there. If you are have a little bit of an egotistical aspect or a control freak going on there, and I have a little bit of that in me, I'd say. But what I found is that the more I tried to control the dreams, the more they started fighting back. And this is typical with all lucid dreamers. There is aspects of some darker aspects of the dream actually starting to fight back and push back to the control. So it brings open the question of who is the dreamer? Who is in control of the dream? And in stage 3, that's where we start learning about that. Stage 4, guidance. Darker aspects of lucid dreaming allow for positive growth. Listening is an important lesson to learn, and hearing what the dream character has to say opens up hidden knowledge. In my lucid dreaming experience, this stage was one of the hardest things to overcome. I started having pushback from my dream characters, and in that, often had nightmarish type of lucid dreams. There is not always a fun aspect to lucid dream. They can turn very nightmarish very quickly. And this includes things like sleep paralysis, as well as hypnagogic hallucinations, which is visions during the period of time before sleep and dreaming. So people sometimes can actually be aware during that stage and see hallucinations while their eyes are open in their room, but they're actually asleep. But from that, what I've learned is that these darker things actually allow for growth once you become aware of them and try to understand them versus try to get away from them or attack them, things like that. These aspects are what Jung had described as the shadow. There's many references to these darker aspects of the psyche in esoteric practices. Shamanistic initiations also describe these darker travels into the underworld, as well as into the sky, where they are actually taken apart and reassembled by death and then rebirth. And many out-of-body experiences also describe these experiences in the experience itself. Stage 5, awareness. So of all the stages, this is the stage where most dream yoga try to get to. So those Tibetan dream yogis and Egyptians describe this stage where they're seeing past the dream images and they're allowed to see the dream as pure consciousness at play. There is more to lucid dreaming than what is just in the mind. It's a physical example of the co-arising of reality in the mind. What I mean by this is that dream yogis are trying to get past the dream imagery There is no self, there is no dream, there is actually just consciousness, and they often describe this as a pure white dream. I would say that even a pure white dream isn't really pure consciousness, because you're actually seeing something with your non-physical eyes, you're actually experiencing something. So often many people that do out-of-body experience training and go deep with it often experience a pure blackness, a pure void, and find it very relaxing and incredible. And I would say that possibly that would be considered a stage 5 lucid dream. So how do I get lucid? Lucid dreaming is about increasing awareness. This means that you're not only trying to increase awareness during the sleep practice, but also awareness in your life during the day, during events that typically take place throughout your life. You're becoming more aware of those things. And in turn, it actually improves your ability to have a lucid dream, or even creates the ability at all to have a lucid dream. Practice primarily focuses on increasing awareness while awake. Again, it's all about being awake. Advanced practices include changing circadian rhythms. This means that typically intense lucid dreamers will change their sleep habits in order to give their brains and their body the best ability to have a lucid dream. Typically, we are unaware when we're asleep, and we're aware when we're awake. So what people do are they're tricking their body to be aware while they're asleep, and also aware while they're awake. So there are many ways to get lucid, and we're just going to focus on a few of them, which are the most effective methods in my personal understanding of lucid dreaming and my research. One of them is mnemonic induction of lucid dreams. They're called MILDs. Wake back to bed, which is WBTB. Supplement induced lucid dreams is SILDs. So we're going to go through each one of those now. So the mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, MILD, is one of the best ways to learn complex processes in math and sciences. So we've all used these before. And if any of you have ever learned the order operations in math, sometimes you may have heard, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." So that's a mnemonic induction to learn something that's more complex, such as parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. We use those as kind of cheat codes in a way to actually remember complex things. So Stephen LeBerg found that this is also effective with lucid dreamers, and probably more effective in many different ways of remembering things throughout our day and in our altered states. What the process is you sleep normally with the intention to have a lucid dream. You wake up from the dream whenever that is. Typically people wake up at least 3 to 5 times a night, and that's pretty average. And in that period of time, we can remember our dreams, as long as we went through a complete dream phase. We wake up from the dream and recall the dream, lucid or not. So if you have a lucid dream, then congratulations, but if you didn't, then the goal here is to just remember the dream as it was, without awareness in the dream. And then you're going to imagine the dream as though you had a lucid dream, and what you would have done in that dream. So you're going to actually pretend that you were aware during that dream and you're lucid, and then you're going to imagine yourself and what you would do in a lucid state in the dream that you just had. So it's kind of creating, imagining this experience that you really didn't have, but you're daydreaming about it in a way, and you're creating an environment. So this is creating the memory bridge, I call it, in order to remember the lucid dream when you wake up the next time. So then, next step is think about that dream with the intention to have a lucid dream as you fall back to sleep. So you're going to imagine that dream that you just had as if you were lucid, and you're also going to go back to bed with the intention to have a lucid dream. And typically, there's about a 50% increase for people that use this process, regardless if they're a lucid dreamer or not, but there's a 50% increase for their ability to actually have a lucid dream that night. So very effective, and something to definitely experiment with when you're trying to have a lucid dream. Now we're going to talk about the wake back to bed method. So this is also extremely effective because what we're doing is we are messing up our circadian rhythm a little bit, And we're making it so that we're aware, our brains are more aware as if we were awake while we're sleeping. So waking up from a period of sleep and going back to bed after a small period of time not only changes your sleep habits, but also your level of awareness. This is because your body thinks you are waking up and are going to continue to be awake. A number of hormones in the body control your level of awareness during the day, including how well you remember experiences. The wake back to bed method allows the dreamer to have the highest level of awareness while still asleep. So the process here is to sleep normally with no intentions or practice, and this is so you can just get a good night's rest. You're going to wake up 5 to 6 hours after sleeping to give your body enough time to rest and feel rested. Then you're going to stay up for about 45 minutes to an hour. This makes it so your brain thinks that you are actually waking up for the day. And now you're going to go back to bed with the intention to have a lucid dream. So you set your attention, you lay down, and then you go to sleep. And from that, there is also an additional 50% chance increase for people that use the wake back to bed method in order to have a lucid dream. Super effective, just like the mild. So now we're going to talk about the SILD, supplement induced lucid dreams. So some supplements have been known to change how the brain operates at specific times. These supplements affect how well the brain remembers experiences and the level of awareness and willpower that you have in sleep. The SILD technique uses a number of supplements in order to alter the mind to have the highest level of awareness when sleeping. So, important note just before we start with this, not all supplements are safe for each individual, and to consult your doctor before using. I just wanted to make sure everyone was clear on that. But what I typically do, and I've found from my research, is that 5-HTP, which is a precursor to serotonin, will actually push REM later into the evenings. And so I take 5-HTP right when I go to sleep, or before I go to sleep. And also you can combine that with mugwort. There's a specific type of mugwort that only works for sleep, and so you can't just take any kind. That's why I listed the name there, and I'm not even going to try to say it correctly. You use that combination before you go to sleep, and what that will do is they will push REM to later periods of the evening. As most people know, REM is primarily the area that we actually remember our dreams. So we do have dreams in non-REM stages, but the most remembered dreams are actually during REM. With that in mind, now we're going to sleep 5 to 6 hours, and we're going to wake up with an alarm. And then we're going to use a combination of galantamine and choline, and we're going to use that combination and give ourselves about an hour to go back to sleep. And then we go back to bed with the intention to have a lucid dream. Now, if you use all these combinations, typically if you're untrained and unable to relax typically or normally when you go to sleep, then this is going to be a really bad combination for you. It takes a lot of patience and relaxation to actually go to sleep. And typically with this combination, I don't even go back to sleep. That means that I have conscious awareness from waking to dreaming without the actual part where I become unconscious and sleep. So my memory is consistent all the way through. I also put a link on here about lucid dreaming supplements, and that's the link to my website, and you can just type in tail eaters and lucid dreaming supplements into Google and that will come up as well. But there is a list of many different types of supplements in there that you can read about, my experimentations with them, as well as other people's research. And then you can look up the safety concerns that you have, or consult your doctor before you use those. I personally use some of these. I don't use them all the time. I take breaks in between uses, and that's also really important. So you don't build up tolerances, and also it doesn't affect the normal sleep that you're trying to get when you're not trying to lucid dream. If you woke up from a dream and you notice that you had a lucid dream, well, that's great. But if you didn't, it's not the end of the world. Sometimes just talking about lucid dreams allows for someone to have their first lucid dream. Intention is a large part of having a lucid dream. If for some reason you are still having trouble having a lucid dream, then enforcing intention can also help. Writing in a dream journal, drawing or painting your dreams, or performing reality checks can enforce your mild technique by building stronger memory bridges. So typically what I do is I have a dream journal next to my bed. If I'm really into lucid dreaming and really paying attention to it and not having a lot of real life events taking place and I can give time to my lucid dreams, then I try to write down my dreams every night that I can. When I really do set the time aside and actually write down my stuff, then I have a really high chance of having lucid dreams or out-of-body experiences. Be as descriptive as possible in when you write them down. Put time and effort in your journal. So it's important to actually physically write down in your journal and not just write on an app. The reason for this is that we're physically doing something with our hands. There's an important aspect to that is lost when we use our smartphones or apps or anything like that. So it's really important to actually physically write down something and take the intention to do that. And then performing reality checks during the day, looking at hands or objects that have details and ask, am I dreaming? So that's a typical way for people to build their intention, build their connection as well into the reality that they have during the day, and then seeing the difference when they're actually in dream world. So often when I first started lucid dreaming, I'd wake up inside my dream, I'd become aware, and I'd be like, oh, I'm dreaming, because I would look at something, my hands or an object or something like that, and it wouldn't be doing or looking the way that I looked when I was awake. Brian Hurd and I developed a nice little talisman, which is a historical way of lucid dreaming actually, and there's a website if you want to take a look at that. So in reference to the Wagner's Dream Scale, which you see on the left, and I discussed about that, in referring to Ken Wilber's AQAL map, you can see some of the similarities in between the two diagrams, really. Ken's map, he starts off at the bottom as kind of being the starting phase of when people are getting into consciousness and understanding themselves and the world around them, where Weber, he starts at the top there in stage 1, and so if you flip them, you can actually almost align these stages together, but obviously Ken's is quite more descriptive and has many more stages involved in it. But what is important here to think about is that lucid dreaming allows for somebody to see a different aspect of consciousness and how they're reacting to it. So it's kind of like a practice. Practice makes perfect, right? So when we apply lucid dreaming and we're actually able to go through these stages in lucid dreaming, I wouldn't say it's a cheat code or a quick track in order to get to the top of Ken's map, but it definitely, I think, accelerates it and allows for people to see a different aspect that they typically wouldn't see during the day. And I think that's why hallucinogens today are so popular, because people are looking for another way of seeing reality. They want to have an experience that is beyond anything they have had before. And the reason for this is they want to gain knowledge or insight that they can't get during their waking life. That is why lucid dreaming, and again I'm going to say, is one of the most realistic experiences that you can have in an altered state, but it's also extremely effective in personal growth, especially when it comes to facing fears and things like that. It's a safe space for doing those things that typically you can't do during the day. So I made some future questions for consciousness. These are questions that I actually ask myself often, and things that I'm trying to understand throughout my research, as well as my practice, my personal sleep practice, and other people's experiences that I've read and asked them about. So are dreams real? That's pretty basic, but I've come to the realization that what is real, what is actually real. So often we have to ask ourselves, is reality real? Does reality change? Is our realities different than another person's reality? Things like that. And it brings up the question, is dreams real? What is real in the dreams? Are they affecting reality? Things like that. How are out-of-body experiences and astral projection different than lucid dreaming? So many people have debated this, and there's no clear answer to it. Typically, I think that they're all part of the same thing, but they're different levels of consciousness or awareness in those states. And there's other interesting and strange phenomenon that happen in the out-of-body experience and astral projection, such as the astral wind, where you get pulled to different places and get shown things that typically don't happen in a lucid dream or a normal dream. So those are interesting aspects that I still don't have the answers for. Is a near-death experience and out-of-body experience the same? I ask myself that often as well, and I think they're related, but possibly not the same thing either. Why are there commonalities with individuals who have sleep paralysis and what they see? So sleep paralysis, I don't really talk about it much. You can go online and read about it, especially from Ryan Hurd's website. He's great in that area. I also wrote some blog posts about that, some guides to help people get through that experience, but often people see similar things in their experiences, and this is a cross-cultural experience as well. So people in 100 years ago, 200 years ago, depicted many things that people today see without even reading anything about it, or having any understanding of what sleep paralysis is or what they should see. And there's other aspects to it as well, such as often sleep paralysis is described as having sleep paralysis and then having the hallucinations. And often what I've actually found and others have found is that they'll have the hallucinations, and that will actually trigger the sleep paralysis itself. So pretty interesting, and there's not much known about sleep paralysis in the professional community of sleep studies. So, and that goes to the next point: how can images or dream figures and themes trigger sleep paralysis? How is memory formed? So nobody knows how memory forms. They have theories about it, and I've reached out to some of the most well-known neuroscientists today who study memory, and especially memory and sleep, and they don't have any clear answers. I'm trying to connect some of those points together to figure out and put a model together of what actually is causing memory and how it's formed, especially during the sleep stage. Are we always dreaming and just able to remember it? So I don't mean are we dreaming when we're awake, but that's an interesting question as well. But are we always dreaming when we're asleep and we're just unable to remember it? So many of these supplements that I talked about before actually increase awareness and memory recall, and they don't actually increase dreams. But what we found is that people that take those supplements remember dreams that they typically would not recall, meaning that there's a possibility that people are dreaming all the time, and people have shown this through research. And non-REM stages, they have just as much dream recall if they're woken up during non-REM as they do during REM. So it's interesting and a good question, and I wish scientists would look more into this. So are dreams a different aspect of reality, or is reality and dreaming the same state, just remembered and interacted with differently? Yeah, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. How are dreams different than reality? Do shamans use the dream space to interact with reality? They absolutely do in their traditions. However, I would really like to know the actual scientific studies, if there is any, that show this information, that actually show cause and effect from dreams into reality and show that actually occurring. Is there a universal experience that shamans have during a dream state that gives them their abilities? So, an interesting class I took on shamanism, one of the books in there was a great reference, and it looked at shamans as in a scientific way, and showed that there are commonalities universally, cross-culturally, that show that shamans go through initiation phase, and often that phase is closely resembles an out-of-body experience where they dissected and put back together, and that by itself is the shamanistic initiation. So with that in mind, is there a universal experience that they have? I would say yes, but at the same time, no one's really answered that question fully. This is just speculation. So I'm really interested in that. So future reading, here are the references that I used in order to get some of my data. So I hope that you enjoyed this presentation and that you got something from it. Thanks, and have a great day.